What's up, COD fans? Welcome back to this 12 on 12 in 12 video series. I hate myself every time I say it, but that's apparently what we're going with. And here in the second video of the 12 video series, we'll be talking about OpTic Gaming Los Angeles. At the beginning of the year, everyone's expectations for OpTic were pretty darn high, and rightfully so. You've got 5 members with a ton of experience, and more importantly, a number of younger guns that have definitely proved themselves over the past couple of years. So expectations should be high. They're going to be having no problem. Well, there'd be problems. And I think because of that, you saw OpTic Gaming LA keep sliding down and down and down in the power rankings for a lot of people. The way that I want to look at this OpTic Gaming LA squad are in 3 different phases. You've got your initial OG phase, appropriately so, your Chino phase, which sees Chino being subbed in, and then the most recent where you bring in Drazah and Hollow. When this team started off, they were 2-7 at a 12-23 map count. That's not good. They weren't necessarily great in any particular mode, mostly losing differentials everywhere, and yeah, it was not pretty at all. But then you make a swap up. JCap exits the roster, Chino enters, and Chino's able to lead them to 5 wins in 11 matches and a 20-21 map count while doing it. On the meanwhile, they get much better at domination, their search and destroy picks up, and their hardpoint sees drastic improvements, but there's a meta swap that happens, and even while Chino was in the mix, there were still questions surrounding a number of players in the OpTic Gaming LA roster. But then you get to the final couple of weeks of the season. You pick up 2 incredible Challengers members in Drazah and Hollow from the team that was UYU. They had an incredible online performance in the Challenger scene, especially these 2 individually, played lights out throughout all those weekends. So then you bring them into the mix on the professional level. They win 3 out of 7. They go 14-14 in the map count, and they continue to look better in hardpoint, better in search, and better in domination. Even though they finished off with around 50-50 when it came to the search and the dom in those last 2 weeks, their differentials were pretty positive. Everything was looking up. And it wasn't just because Drazah and Hollow brought something to the team that Chino didn't. It is a lot of the fact that Drazah and Hollow played at a level that essentially was able to allow TJ and Kenny to play extremely quickly, and Slasher gets to do Slasher things. And when Slasher gets to just hang out in the back with an AR, he's going to be nasty. And that's been 100% the case for this OpTic Gaming LA squad. So, as we take a look towards their playoff run, hopes would be high, and they should be, because the performance they put on in those last 2 weeks was nothing short of astounding. The fact that every single member has looked the best that they have in these last 2 weeks than they did throughout the entire season, that's a great time to get hot. And now you unfortunately aren't able to get the work done to fully get into the top 8. It was a tough journey, let's be honest, getting from the bottom 4 to the top 8. Not quite able to get it done. So you have to go through a lower bracket run. The good news is you play up against your LA counterparts first, in which, as long as you prepare for them in search and destroy, you should be feeling pretty good about them since that they're the worst team in both respawn modes. So for OpTic Gaming LA, hopes are high. I have really good feeling that this team's going to make a pretty lengthy lower bracket run. Just comes down to who do they face up against in the future, because candidly, if they have to play up against Atlanta or Dallas early in some surprise fashion, those are 2 matchups that don't necessarily bode well for them, as they're 0-3 versus Atlanta, 0-2 versus Dallas, and they have a combined 3-15 map count versus both of those squads. The better news, though, is versus everybody in the middle of the pack, you hold a positive differential or a pretty tight differential in the head-to-head series with. So that's one of those things you look at as far as the history that's gone through so far has been good. But even better is the fact that you've got everybody playing at the highest ability they've ever had. You take a look at some of their individual stat lines just across all the modes through the cumulative season. This is the 8th best respawn team in total between hardpoint and domination, where yes, they still hold a negative differential in hardpoint, but a +5 in the domination is actually pretty darn good. And yes, you're taking a look at that number 10 next to the search and destroy, saying, well, Shift, you just told me that the Los Angeles Guerrillas are good at search and destroy, but you got to keep in mind that for OpTic Gaming LA, that differential is really close to even, and beyond that, their rank continues to rise because their win percentage is continually to go up. Even if it's just marginal, it is continuing to go up. So, to kind of get more of a look as far as how the regular season has gone, and maybe a more of a backstory on one of these special players as far as what they bring to the table for OpTic Gaming LA, and what that might mean for their playoff run, I had some time to sit down and talk with Drazah about all those things. So joining me now is Drazah from OpTic Gaming LA. This is actually kind of funny because I got to kind of be there when you won MVP at IHOLDSHIFT not too long ago. Well, it feels like a long time ago. But that's just like part of the story for you this year, right? And this year as a whole for
100%.
OpTic hasn't really been exactly what anyone would call a storybook year for them. But for you specifically, it's been absolutely one to remember. You turn 19, you get into the scene, you're doing very well. And after solid placings at Minnesota and Atlanta in the Challenger scene, I kind of just want to get to know, like, what was it like playing through the online portion of the Challenger scene alongside UIU? And was there any specific moment while you were playing that you were sitting there saying, hey, I could make it at a pro roster this year?
Well, playing with UIU, I mean, when I initially joined the roster, I thought we were going to win everything because, like, we just had such a stacked roster. But it took a little bit for us to, like, get a foot holding into the scene. And, I mean, like, we had our moments. Like, I truly thought that we were the best team in the scene. We just kept choking and just never got it fully. We never just fully were on the same page. But, like, in the beginning of the roster, like, the first few months, I figured, like, I thought I was going to be in the Pro League this year. But towards the end of, like, the roster lock, I didn't think I was going to make it. So I figured I would be playing champs, of course, in the amateur scene. But luckily, I got hit up, like, a week and a half before roster lock, which I was completely surprised when I got hit up.
That's what I was going to wonder about, was because I know that was all like conversation was like, oh, OpTic is looking to make more changes. And we're like, but wait, there's not a lot of time left to make those swap ins. It's kind of wild because everyone at the beginning of the year looked at this OpTic Gaming LA initial roster and we're thinking that they were absolutely loaded. And then when the roster wasn't performing near their expectations, we had Chino who subbed in, had a couple of great weekends, but it didn't last. And then now it's you and Hollow that joined in. And all of a sudden, it kind of feels like not only are you and Hollow playing at a super high level, but everybody else around you guys is also playing the best that they've played at this year. So what do you think it is about players like yourself and Hollow that maybe help this roster kind of become the best that they've been so far?
Honestly, I think the reason why us joining helped them so much is because I'm a very fast-paced sub, so that it held, like, I can move fast with Kenny and TJ, and Darren has a very, very good spawn knowledge of, like, the game, so he knows the game very, very well. And he is a great second AR, and, like, I think, like, we played with each other in the UIU Challenger scene, so we already had that chem. So we just brought our chem onto, like, their 3 chem, and honestly, I think we just meshed very well, and, like, we just were able to, like, pick off, like, each other.
That's really interesting because, I mean, you talk about those 5 members that initially started the roster, and it was some of the most veteran or experienced rosters
100%.
that we had in the CDL going in. But so you joined OpTic Gaming LA, but you joined it at an especially strange time. You mentioned that it was right before the roster lock, but the team was also at that moment in time still in the bottom 4 with a really tough journey ahead of them to break into that top 8. So before we talk about trying to get to that point, I'm just kind of curious, what was it like jumping into this elite roster so late in the year with an extremely tough last 2 weeks to close out the season?
Well, yeah, when we joined, I think we had maybe 3 weeks of practice till our next tournament, so I knew that, like, we had to get our shit going.
Right.
And I think that we just, like, meshed well, and it was, like, very, very good in the beginning, like, honeymoon phase of our team. And I mean, joining the team with, such pressure to get into the, top 8. I didn't really feel the pressure because I knew, like, we had we were capable of easily, getting into the top 8. But honestly, like, I didn't feel much pressure about it. I felt like we had what it took, and if we just played a few more rounds going our way, a few more hard points going our way, then we are in the top 8.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing because all of the respawns were extremely close when you and Hollow joined in. Even the games that you guys have lost, with maybe the exception of a map or 2 here or there, everything was tremendously close. Was it just one of those things that you kind of had mentioned this? Was it just because you and Hollow had so much experience together and because they had so much experience together that respawns you guys just, like, naturally went into a flow? Or is there someone who's, like, IGLing, like, taking over the movement on the map a little bit more than others?
Well, Asa is our IGL, but I think just our chem, me and Darian's chem, we just worked the map so well, and them 3, like, they've had chem, so we just kind of meshed well with our chem, and we just, like, worked the map pretty well. The flow was good, And I think that's why like we were one of like the better hardpoint teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, and it showed too. I mean, your last 2 weeks, you guys played a lot of the best hardpoint teams in the game extremely close, or beat them. Specifically, that matchup versus Chicago Huntsman is the one that I'm kind of thinking of. But of course, after kind of concluding that Toronto weekend, unfortunately, you guys don't quite break into the top 8 by the end of the year. So now you find yourself playing up against the counterpart LA team, the Gorillas, in lower bracket round 1. So where exactly is your, or maybe the team's head at when it comes to preparing not just for the Los Angeles Gorillas in these next few weeks, but specifically to try to make a long lower bracket run?
I mean, honestly, we just gotta clean up our hard points a little bit. I think our hard points are really strong as a team already. If we clean that up, then we'll be a strong hard point team. But for LAG, we just need to make sure that our S&D is good, because that is a good S&D team. If we beat them in the S&Ds, we won't lose the series. So we just gotta focus up on our S&Ds and make sure that we're playing together.
Do you still kind of feel, though, I mean, I talked to a couple other people that are starting in the lower bracket, and their mindset is, this is perfect for us. We can just take it a game at a time. We don't have to worry about a Dallas or a Chicago or an Atlanta in front of us. Do you prefer, like, that kind of a mindset, or do you still kind of feel maybe a little bit of the pressure of, hey, we're in the lower bracket, we can't make any mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I'd prefer having two, like, being able to lose twice, but since we're starting like losers bracket, I think we just play one game at a time and just build the momentum. I think once we like get on a little 3-4 like win spree, I think once these players we'll be playing everyone who drops, so everyone we play will have lost, so we'll be at our highest while they're at their lowest. So I think honestly, like, we can very well make a losers bracket run.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it, man. I got a lot of high hopes, not just for the team, but especially for you and Hollow, especially, man. It's just been so cool watching you guys grow. So, well, congratulations on the year so far, obviously. Back to work, though, young man. Get going. We want to see you make a good playoff run. All right. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you.
Always love talking to Drazah. The kid's incredible at Call of Duty, obviously, and I'm so glad that him and Hollow both got a chance not only to show off what they have at the pro scene, but to do it along such great company. I'm really excited to see TJ and Kenny kind of hit that playoff form. We saw them reaching for that at the Toronto home series, where they played incredibly well, especially versus the Chicago Huntsmen. Yeah, there were some bad moments in the search and destroy against Atlanta, but the respawns, again, we're pretty close. So I'm feeling really strong about this OpTic Gaming LA squad. Slasher is always in Slasher form. And again, Drazah and Hollow, I think, are two of the biggest pickups that could have been made out of the Challenger scene this year that I feel like we're not talking enough about. Can we please talk about that a little bit more? So that's going to be doing it here for our second video in the series. Again, if you missed our previous videos, please make sure you go check out the playlist that's linked to this video specifically to get caught up on any videos you may have missed. And for ones that have yet to come out, make sure you subscribe. Ring the notification bell to know when they go live. And hopefully we'll catch you back for the next one. Until then, just keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.